Testing 1 2 1 2 testing. Hello everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Monday afternoon, midday in the UK stream. My name's Tommo. You're here. We're live. Slightly different surroundings though today. If you're watching in video version, you're about to see where I am. Not in our new house. Welcome everyone. This isn't the house that me and Hannah have just moved into. That is still an absolute pigsty, and we don't have internet yet. So we're here at Hannah's dad's. Welcome everyone. Using their internet. So we're going handheld with the microphone today as well. Handheld energy. It's a very different vibe. Very different. I haven't gone handheld for a long time. It's been a very long time. But I'm actually loving this. I'm on the dining room table. There's good depth, so I can get the camera nicely placed. Got my light up there. And there's a new dog that I will show you if you stick around to the end of the stream. But only if you stay to the end. So, yeah, Will, mate, you've moved to London just as I've left. I'm sorry, okay? But that's what it is. That TV presenter vibe. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to everyone who's here live, watching, listening. And thank you to everyone who's watching and listening after the fact. This, basically, after these, you might have seen on Spotify and on my Buzzsprout. I can't work out Apple Podcasts for some reason, but I've got the audio-only version of all of these pre- and post-race streams. There's a link in the top line description. So if you want to get subscribed on Spotify and listen to these, you can. So there you go. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Hello, Michael, Hoppy, Abby, Ben, Advit, Elliot. Ginger, Zuck, Anas, great profile picture, Anas, love it. And yeah, we're here today to talk all about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It's weird. It feels different holding the microphone. It feels really weird. I don't know. I've taken the sides off. You don't usually see a sorry, I realize you can't hear me if I do that. But got the little bit sticking out the side. But actually, the light is pretty good in here. My forehead doesn't look. It doesn't look too shiny by my standards. Okay, it's still pretty shiny, but it's not crazy shiny. But anyway, right. Thank you all for coming. Let's start by rating the race, shall we? Let me know in the live chat, or actually what I will do, because I know you'll just all spam numbers in the live chat. Right, I'm gonna have to put the microphone down when I type out a poll as well. That's kind of annoying. 2 seconds. Right, rating out of 10. Right, okay, I'm not going to do out of 10 in the poll. Amazing, decent, alright, trash. Boom, there's a poll, Do the poll. Click the option you want to click on the poll, right? Sick. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of sevens. Which I'm quite surprised about. Because look, the thing is as well, when we're rating a Formula 1 race, and the condition... Oh, it's weird with my voice. I've got I've got a big Lucozade. Because we've been moving all weekend, and Hannah had to go into work today. I'm sure she's shattered. Sam, I've just realised, if you're watching this, how many bloody plugs you've got plugged in under your desk, mate. That's a fire hazard if I've ever seen it. But we were grafting. Me and Sam were grafting on Saturday, and then me and Ham moving the rest of the stuff out yesterday. I'm shattered. I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, what was I even talking about? I completely forgot. But anyway, it was a good race, and oh yeah, expectations. Okay, I think expectations with an F1 race, you have to kind of bear in mind that unless the conditions are weird, like it's raining, changeable, whatever, right? Then you have to expect a race to kind of have a exciting start, which this did. It wasn't no crashes, which is great, but it had a pretty exciting start, I thought. It doesn't have to have a crash to be exciting. Let's get that out of the way as well. And then kind of there's a bit of a lull, and then you've got the pit stops where things kind of change up a bit, and obviously there were some dramatic pit stops thanks to the power of Nutella, but we'll get onto that. And then you get an exciting end as well, and you kind of have those breaks those kind of lulls in between where things calm down a bit, but that should be expected. And a lot of retirements by the end of it as well, which obviously changed up who scored points in the end. This is a prime example, right? Because 6 cars didn't. You had Albon was the last car to not finish, so you only had 13 cars finish the race, and this is why when we talk about points, are like, oh, Russell never got points in Williams, blah blah. Like points is such a arbitrary number, like when things happen outside of your control that can elevate your position, right? For example, like Lando finishing P7. I mean, no, to be fair, actually Lando did a good job. Like, okay, Gasly finishing 8 and Magnussen 9. Like, they're finishing out the points if Fernando and Ricciardo and Bottas don't break down. You know what I mean? But anyway, for me, my race rating gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought this was a fantastic race. The race on track was great. The stuff surrounding it, we can talk about that later maybe. But as for the race itself, I thought it was great. It was a great race. Why is it a 7? You lot are being too harsh. And you know, I say I'm not charity. I'm not giving these numbers out willy nilly. I thought it was a fantastic race. You had a great end, fantastic. Like last 10 laps, quality. Start was good. Obviously, you had the mix up with the pit stops and great wheel-to-wheel racing. Ocon and Alonso drama that kept us occupied. That was it was a great race. Obviously, we'll talk about the issues surrounding Saudi Arabia and whether we should have raced or not separately. But I'm talking about just the race itself. For me, it was a 9. Really, really good, and it's a pretty incredible start to the new era. We've had 2 really, really strong races. Obviously, you know, to be honest, actually, when I think about it, I feel like in time, it should only get better. Because obviously, Mercedes get on top of their porpoising issue. Look, they are clearly the 3rd quickest car. The way Lewis was moving through the pack, the way that George kind of established and, you know, set himself into that P5 for the whole race. He had a very quiet one, didn't he? But that's kind of what you want. I mean, George maximised what he could on the day. He didn't really put a foot wrong. And Lewis should have finished P6 if it wasn't for, you know, unfortunate time safety car. But he wasn't the only one who was negatively affected by that. So I think it's one of them that, yeah, when the teams get on top of their packages, I do feel like the racing should be even better. Because at the moment, you've kind of got Williams, Aston Martin that are kind of, they are the bottom 2 teams firmly. And then you've got Ferrari, you've got Red Bull, and I think when Mercedes sort out the porpoising so they don't have to tune performance out of the car to make it drivable, I think they will be nipping at the heels, kind of like how Red Bull were nipping at the heels of Ferrari and occasionally getting a win in like 2018. It's like 2018, wasn't it? Where like you had Ferrari and Mercedes were like the top 2 teams, but then Max would pull out a podium, an occasional win every now and then, but in the car that wasn't quite as strong as the other 2. You know what I mean? But anyway, Lewis P10 with 4 DNFs. I mean, yeah, but he got shafted by the safety car. So I know you don't like him, Gert, but let's deal with facts here, okay? But yeah, so it was full of action. Again, look, expectations. Like we can't have every race be some mad weather. For a race that was calm, no massive changes in weather, I thought it was fantastic. He didn't get shafted. He ignored the call to box. Well, I saw that, but it wasn't like I don't know. I know what you mean, Tila. I've seen that there's a radio which kind of alludes to. I don't think it's clear. Who's making excuses for Lewis? It's just the truth. TJ, look into it. But yeah, so it was good. It was a very, very good race, and I enjoyed it a lot, even though Albon didn't finish. But we'll get on to that. And obviously, this is how it finished. Verstappen, P1. Leclerc, P2 with fastest lap. Sainz, P3, top three. Perez, Russell, Ocon, Norris, Gasly, Magnussen, Hamilton, top 10. Top 10. And then a lot of non-finishers. You can see from all the X's. Albon technically finished, hence why he hasn't got an X next to his name, because he completed enough of a percent of the race before he had to pull over after him and Stroll came together. But we will talk about that, like I said. And look, obviously, the main story really from this is what could have been for Sergio Perez. Stuck it on P1. I was a bit, obviously, we were busy. I was gutted not to cover that quali stream because I was so, oh, mate, I was so happy for Sergio. First time, what was it? It was his 11th anniversary since his first race in F1. He raced his number 11. The race started at 11 a.m. Mexico time as well. I mean, it's just coincidence, isn't it, obviously, but, you know, written in the stars, maybe. And, yeah, look, obviously, it's just so unlucky. It's just so unlucky. There's nothing you can do, because, obviously, if Perez stays out, you know, Ferrari make the call to Leclerc, box to overtake, to try and pull the undercut. So Red Bull, you know, whether or not... That's the thing. It's a prime example of when you're running... When you're running behind someone, you have the power to dictate. You know, when it comes to pit stops. Look, not to reopen old wounds, but Abu Dhabi, 2021, Max was behind Lewis, was able to pit onto the softs because it was very much like, if Lewis doesn't pit, you pit. If Lewis does pit, don't pit. You know what I mean? It was one of them. And look, obviously, it works perfectly for the Ferrari boys. Sergio was looking comfortable as well. That's what makes it even more kind of like he was. It wasn't like he was just hanging on to the lead. Like, he had a good 2.5 seconds. I feel like he had about I seem to remember him having about 2.5 seconds to Leclerc. When, yeah, exactly, Goldie. It's easy being the hunter. Or it's easier being the hunter, which is exactly what you said. I just read it wrong. Yeah, look, what I think it does show is that, and look, I've said this time and time again, and I know a lot of people will automatically be like, you're just saying this because you're an Alex fan. I mean, if you're that, you know, short-sighted, then fine, whatever. But it's not a coincidence to me. And I was saying this, you know, Sergio's got this year under his belt working with the team at Red Bull, jumping into these new cars. Is he a better driver and a quicker qualifier than Max Verstappen? Absolutely not. But given the fact that Max isn't carrying the car knowledge that he had, and clearly a car that was very catered to his style of driving, he's not carrying that into this new set of regulations. And Sergio's got loads of experience. I'm not he was less than a quarter of a second off in Bahrain, and he outqualified Max at Saudi. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. So it's one of them where, you know, I think we'll see loads more P1 qualifiers for Sergio Perez? No, I don't. I think, you know, Sergio, he said it himself. He left everything on the table in that lap, and Leclerc was still only 25 thousandths of a second, wasn't it? Off of Checo. Do I think Checo will challenge, you know, Max and Charles for the title, and possibly Carlos? Probably not. But this was one of his where he hooked up the lap, absolutely nailed it. Perez, he obviously, you know, he loves Azerbaijan. He loves a bit of Baku. Another quick, speedy track. He's got a bit of a need for speed, old Sergio, hasn't he? And yeah, I'm sure everyone was gutted for him. You know what I mean? Whether or not you're a Ferrari fan or a Checo fan, I think everyone could appreciate that it was very, very harsh how things turned out for Sergio Perez. Gutted for him. Would he have won the race necessarily? I think if he'd have been able to hold on to P1 and not get undercut, and look, I think Red Bull did the right thing. Pit in Sergio, come out fresh tyres, and then, Leclerc's the undercut's been pretty powerful as far as we've seen so far this season. I know we're in 2 races in. And I just feel like they did the right thing. It was just, again, the power of Nutella got in the way. Which, ironically, is exactly the opposite of what happened last season. But anyway, to the team, that is. Thank you, Jeff Cott, for the 5, mate. Wanted to enjoy the race more, but knowing it was in Saudi just reduced my excitement levels. Ban Russia from F1, but not nations who kill LGBT, etc. Yeah, we'll talk about that towards the end, Jeff Cott, because there's definitely a conversation to be had there. A conversation of hypocrisy and what's the best way of putting it? Kind of actions based off of surrounding pressure versus morals versus where's the money coming from? Because Aramco isn't just, the title partner at Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Aramco's there on every single Grand Prix, plastered everywhere. They put a lot of money into Formula One. Do I think that was part of... Come on. But we'll talk about that later on. We'll get onto that. Thank you, JB, for the 179, mate. Did anyone notice Magnussen Gasly lap 1? I didn't notice that. I noticed, obviously, Joey got caught out, didn't he? He fell back a bit, which was a shame. Both Alfa Romeos seem to have problems off the line again, which ain't ideal. And then, Joey got kind of caught out up the inside, and his car was doing mad things. But that Alfa Romeo is rapid. Once they get them starts sorted, they're going to be up there. Thank you, Daniel, as well, for the 499. Did you hear the Lando interview with Rosanna? He was brutally honest about car performance. I was so damn surprised. No, I did. If you haven't seen Lando's interview it was the F1 live show, wasn't it? After the race with Rosanna. Look, obviously, I get it from, Rosanna's point of view as a TV host. You're trying to kind of keep a positive spin and vibe on it, but Lando wasn't really having any of it, which is fair enough because they're not in a good place, McLaren. This was a much better race. I was expecting that. They should have both been in the points. Well, should they? I think they would have both been in the points because Daniel was actually running ahead of Lando, wasn't he? So then you look at how close it got. But then obviously you've got to take into account, okay, Fernando DNF'd, Valtteri DNF'd. Tsunoda, could he have been up there maybe? Because Gasly, AlphaTauri pace wasn't great though. So you could definitely make an argument that McLaren, that there was a double point scoring position on the table there, but you could say that for a few teams. So I think they know they're just terrible in slow speed, shockingly bad in slow speed, McLaren. But their car's all right everywhere else, so hopefully they can just focus on that issue in the same way that Mercedes are focusing seemingly on the porpoising issue. Hopefully, they're able to do the same. Thank you, Elliot, for the 5. The thoughts on Albon penalty points, a good place for Oz. Seems harsh to me considering it looked like a racing incident. I'll do a poll for that in a bit. I don't want to talk about that now. I'll talk about that when we go through everyone. Okay, I want to get the winners and losers before I talk too much about specific incidents. But thank you, Elliot. I appreciate that. And we will talk about that. Don't you worry. Because I want to get everyone else's thoughts. Because again, look, it just because, and I'm not saying I'm going to defend Alex. I'm just saying if I do, doesn't mean I'm doing it because I'm biased. It might be just because I think he wasn't in the wrong. But we'll see. We'll see what I think. We'll see. Maybe I'll surprise you. Because I have had a look at the incident quite a lot. I've had a good few looks at it, and yeah, we'll see. Thank you, Robert, as well for the 5 Canadian, and thank you, Stratos, for the €5. Leclerc seems like a different driver this year, mature, calm, and ready for a title fight. I'm super excited. Leclerc proved Leclerc's got the minerals. I think at times he's been guilty of overdriving. That's been his biggest problem. But I think Max was the same. I think Max was guilty of overdriving in his early Red Bull years, pushing a bit too hard. But he seems to have been able to kind of dial that down. And maximise and not make too many silly mistakes. All drivers make mistakes, but I think Leclerc's definitely title prep. He showed that in 2019, though. I'm not going to lie. He showed that in 2019. Thank you, Jamie, as well, for the 14.99 Aussie. Hey, Tommo, what's your opinion on the new regulations for tyres? Free tyre choice, qualifying for all drivers. Also, I'm an Aussie. Also, as an Aussie, I'm devastated that I miss out on a ticket. Oh, God, Jamie. Well, hopefully you can find somewhere. To be fair, when you go to a race, you only see your corner. So you go to the race for the vibes, for the festival feel, for the food at Silverstone anyway. Food's banging. But, well, it's not always banging, actually. I had a terrible hot dog at Silverstone. If you watch the Veloce video we did, then you'll know. But new regulations for tyre, yeah, I mean, I'm cool with free tyre choice. Yeah. I thought it was a silly rule before, personally. I want to see everyone going like the clappers in qualifying. I want softs every run. You know what I mean? I don't want people to be, unless they... Look, obviously, it gives teams choice to, all right, we can save certain compounds and not use them in qualifying. But it gives teams a choice, and I feel that's the better way of doing it. So I'm pretty happy with how it is, personally. And thank you, Andre. Remember when everyone during their predictions said Red Bull will fall off this season because they focus too much on the title fight? Yeah, I mean, look, that was a reasonable thought to have. It's funny because did that have an impact on Mercedes? Because I think both teams were pushing clearly in 2021 because both teams wanted the title. Red Bull came out on top in the end. Is it a case of, and Christian Horner's talked about them starting late, whether you believe that or not is up to you. But, the fact that Mercedes are struggling so much, if you'd have looked at last season, how much the teams were pushing towards the end of the year. Now, obviously, in terms of upgrades, I can't remember off the top of my head how much like Mercedes and Red Bull were bringing. I'm sure some people will be like, Mercedes didn't bring any upgrades, Red Bull didn't bring any, or whatever. I don't care, whatever. All I'm saying is when Focus, like Haas, writ off 2021, and now they might be, probably behind the Alpine, like sixth quickest car probably, which is pretty crazy. So we'll see. Right, okay. And one more super chat and then we'll crack on. Thank you, Advate, for the 642, mate. Not to start anything here, but 2 races, 4 to 5 battles, Charles versus Max, no incidents. Last year, 2 collisions within 4 races. Max doesn't seem like the issue. Look, obviously, the thing you have to bear in mind is that when you're fighting at the start of the season, wow, Lottie has quite a snore now. When you're fighting at the start of the season, that's the name of the family dog here, by the way. When you're fighting at the start of the season, you're going to be that. It's a very when you're racing in Saudi Arabia and it's the penultimate race of the year. That's a very different kettle of fish to racing the second race of the season, because you're not. There's no way it's the same mindset. So. Look, Bahrain, first race of last year, Lewis and Max came close and Lewis came out on top and there wasn't an incident. It wasn't until Silverstone, which was... How many races was Silverstone into the season that they actually came together? You know what I mean? So actually, like, I don't... Advate, I understand where you're coming from, but I disagree because I think the context is very different. Yeah, 10 races in, there you go. So it's halfway into the season, which is very different. Like if this race is halfway into the season and maybe like they're really or maybe like Charles is starting to get away or Max is starting to get away, then maybe the drivers are a bit more desperate because they're like, right, I need... Because you've got to remember as well, right? We've got 23 races this year. Well, we're meant to have 23 races. We'll see. So each race, proportionally, counts for less than races ever have in the past. So say you've got a 15-race season. If you DNF one race, that is 1/15 of your potential point scoring window gone. Whereas if you DNF from one race this year, that's only 1/23. That's a smaller percentage. So, and yeah, look, it's 2 races in. Imola was after Silverstone, wasn't it? But anyway. yeah. So anyway, those are the results. Let's now talk about my winners and my losers, my dubs, my W's, my L's. Who, driver team. We'll get to yours in a minute. Obviously, I polled you lot after the race. Put it out there on Twitter, on YouTube community. If you missed it, sorry. Just keep an eye on my Twitter after the race, after each race, because I'll ask for these after every race, and on YouTube community. So my winners and my losers. Imola was the second race. Oh, right. Oh, God's sake. You said Imola, and I thought Monza for some reason. Because I just thought Italy. Oh, yeah, Monza. And I've completely forgot about Imola. Because San Marino, innit? It's not even Italy. Come on. Look, I don't feel 100% okay. I need some more Lucozade. Look, listen, I'm happy to be told by chat, all right? Yeah, because, they didn't... It was Russell and Bottas who came together at Imola, wasn't it? Hamilton got... That was one of them where Hamilton got fortunate, to be fair. UK education. Yeah, but it used to be called the San Marino Grand Prix, Mr. Zuck, all right? I'm not here for technicalities, all right? Come on. Anyway. Hey, Eclipse, 30 months have been a friend of Tommo. Love it, mate. Love it. Thank you very much. Right, okay, here are my honourable mentions that you will see under each picture. So, my W of the weekend, I went with Verstappen, which you might think, well, look, he only qualified fourth, which he did, but he executed the race perfectly, and he got Charles. So, it's one of them where, he got the move on Carlos, kept pace, obviously unfortunate for Sergio, but he won the race. And so I've gone with Max for my driver of the weekend, driver W. I put Ocon as well, honourable mentions, P6 in the end. Interesting, his battle with Alonso, very interesting. But I think we'll go through the drivers bit by bit. Russell I put in there. I think Russell maximised his weekend. I don't think Russell could have done much more. So I think he's a worthy candidate for being up there. And Sergio Perez, who I've also put in the honourable mentions for L of the weekend, because obviously it was out of his control, but he drove, when you look at the pace of Charles and Carlos and Max in the race, and before, the car, not the car, Nicholas's car decided to go into the wall, then, yeah, Sergio was... I'm just gutted. I was so upset. I was so upset when that happened, honestly. Team W of the weekend, got to say Red Bull, put it on pole with Perez, and got the race win. And the car looked strong. The car looked strong. Obviously, they ran less wing than Ferrari, seemingly, because they had more straight line speed. And yeah, I think what more can you ask? Obviously a 1-2 would have been nice for Red Bull, but the thing is that race could have ended up as a Red Bull 1-2 quite conceivably, because Max was pretty close to Charles the whole race. It's one of them, innit? And Max did so well to get past Carlos. That was a super important move to get him up the inside, which kind of, because Charles kind of pushed Carlos wide, but they were saying that in post, which is kind of true. It's like Carlos almost got too good a start, so that he saw an opportunity and around the outside of Charles, but then didn't defend the inside. But there you go. Here to see me diss Perez, like always. Wow, the Dark Knight. You've not been here for the stream, have you? You've clearly just turned up. And then L of the weekend, it's Nicholas Latifi for the second weekend running. Crashed in qualifying. And he crashed in qualifying, didn't he? Because I missed Q1, but I caught the middle of Q2, and then because I tuned in just before Mick Schumacher crashed here, actually. But yeah, so not great for Nicky. Yuki cannot catch a break. He had what? He had car problems in FP3 in Bahrain. And then car just decides to, it's just, nah, I'm all right for qualifying. Nah, I'm not going to work. And then the race, it's like, nah, I'm all right as well. You know what I mean? I'm not going to work. Yuki's car's on strike for some reason. Yeah, man. Not his fault, but it's an L. Schumacher, obviously, main thing is that he's all right because that was a nasty shunt. Into concrete at about 170 mile an hour. Those side impact structures. Listen, in the same way we talk about the halo at the start, it was like, oh, it's ugly. But then you see where the halo has potentially saved lives with the Leclerc incident at Spa where Alonso got yeeted over him. Obviously, Hamilton, Verstappen, the Red Bull at Monza. There's been countless examples. Grosjean, Bahrain, obviously. And then we see incidents like this, and it's like, yes, the cars are big physically, but they are big for a reason. And when you get a side impact like that, it's kind of like, okay, yeah. If these cars are smaller, if they're narrower, then there's not as much physical material around a driver to protect them. So, good, a good example of why, because they talked about the improved kind of crash structure from the front, and I know I was partly disappointed that the cars weren't a bit smaller, but when you see incidents like that, you're like, actually, you know what, I'm kind of happy there's a bit more metal around the driver. But obviously, it was his fault. He just kind of caught it on the curb, which a few drivers did. I mean, Alonso, Ocon, both almost did the same. I think Carlos did the same there last year, didn't he? Where he just skimmed the wall and he just broke the end of his rear wing. So, yeah, it's one of them, and it's a shame because that Haas has got good pace, but these things will happen at a fast track like Saudi. I'm surprised he was the only big bin of the weekend in F1 anyway. And then Perez, I put in there as well because he got shafted. Wasn't his fault, but it's still an L to finish P4 considering he definitely could have won that race. Obviously, Hamilton, that's a bit of an L for him as well. Should have finished P6, could have finished P6. On pace was P6, which would have been, again, good damage limitation considering he qualified 16th, but obviously late safety car kind of done over Lewis a bit there. And then Team L of the weekend, Williams, by far and away the slowest car, seemingly. Even slower than we knew it was slower than the Aston Martin, but it's not good, is it? It's not a good car, which is obviously annoying. There was a lot of expectation, new ownership, Joska Pete. I know we're only 2 races in, but that car looks fundamentally slow. And I don't know what the issue is with the Williams. Because we know that with the Mercedes, if they can sort out this porpoising, seemingly, then they've got a very good car. Because then they can run it lower, get more grip. But I don't know about the Williams. And obviously both drivers didn't finish the race. Latifi crashed and into the wall, and Albon and Stroll had a little incident as well, didn't they? Which we were talking about earlier. Aston Martin, again, another very weekend. Nico kept on the arse, didn't he, and ran out. And then Stroll, obviously, I mean, he's battling with Albon. They're the 2 slowest cars. You know what I mean? Quite clearly. Mercedes, obviously, L of the weekend because they're Mercedes and they're still so far off the top. Like, that has to be, when you consider the context of the drivers they have and their success and where they are now, and the fact as well that Lewis, obviously, missed out in terms of the pits, which, look, I don't know 100% what is Vibav. I didn't delete them, I just unlisted them, so they're still on the channel. It just means they don't show in the videos. I just think it's one of them where Mercedes should be up there. Clearly, they've got the personnel, they've got the infrastructure, they got the start, and that car isn't where it needs to be, and that's on them. You know what I mean? I did like that bit of defending from Lance-Stroll and Lewis Hamilton. That was very good. I was like, go on, Lance. Go on, son. Before him and Albon crashed into each other, obviously. That was a good little bit of defending from Lance-Stroll there. I enjoyed that into turn 1-2 a bit. And then AlphaTauri I put in there as well. Obviously, Yuki's car's just been terrible. Like, just not been able to drive it. It's just been a waste of time, pretty much, Yuki going there. And Gasly didn't have much pace. I hope Pierre's all right, because he had some like proper pain, didn't he, in his intestines towards the end. So I hope he's all right. I don't know if we've heard anything from Pierre, but it didn't sound too good. You don't want to be having a bloody some kind of medical emergency when you're in the car, because he was in a lot of pain, but he still managed to hold it into the point. So fair play to Pierre, but yeah, not great. Not great for AlphaTauri, but there you go. There you go. Right, okay, so on to your winners and losers now, and then we'll just go through all of the teams and the drivers. Boom. There you go. 56% of you gave Max Verstappen driver W of the weekend. 56%. Pretty slam dunk. Leclerc 13%, Perez 9%, Norris 7%. Fair play, Norris, considering how bad that McLaren was last week. Team W weekend, Ferrari. I was surprised about that. Ferrari, 46% of the vote for Team W. Red Bull, 43%. So Red Bull took, even though they didn't win the race, which is interesting, and didn't qualify on pole either. So. But then you can talk about luck. But then also, like, Perez should have been leading anyway. So yeah, that was a bit weird. But then Alpine 6%. Shout out Alpine, smashed it. Not literally, obviously. They finished. Well, no, Alonso didn't finish the race, did he? Engine problem, seemingly car overheating. And then McLaren 4%. L of the weekend. Hamilton just sneaks it ahead of Latifi, 35%. But look, again, this is up to. I try with this to, if I'm picking at L, or I'm trying to focus on the driver's performance. And Lewis himself, obviously, the setup, which is a combination of the team and him, for sure. Like the team just doesn't set up the car and be like, go on, go with it. Like it's a collaborative thing. So Lewis has to take part blame for that car not being set up properly and not even getting out of Q1. So that's a huge L. But he did what he needed to do to get through the field and was running fairly close behind Russell once. And then obviously safety car, and he was just unfortunate, seemingly. But yeah, so 35% of the vote for Russell. For Lewis Hamilton, 34% for Nicholas Latifi. So just behind. And then Perez, obviously we talked about him already, and Tsunoda we've already talked about. I mean, in terms of unlucky, out of your control L, it has to be Tsunoda, surely. Couldn't even qualify, couldn't even make the race. That's unbeatable in terms of L. But there you go. And then, yeah, obviously Team Williams. Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Mercedes. Yeah, Alfa. Obviously Bottas broke down, didn't he? No points either. I did actually forget about that. I didn't realise till after that Bottas hadn't actually made the line. But there you go. Mercedes, right, cool. That's all done. Now, let's go through all the teams, shall we? Starting Williams. Oh, look, I'm mirrored. Do I look weird mirrored? You're just going to have to deal with me being mirrored. And this is the reversed version of me. Yeah, Williams. Again, another shocking weekend. Latifi. I don't know what to say. It's his third season in the sport now, Nicholas. And did he have, is he a pay driver? Of course. He didn't have the most glistening F2 career. Comes into F1, convincingly beaten by George first year and second year. Race pace was closer to George second year, but still relative. It's like saying Perez was closer to Verstappen than Gasly and Albon were. Well, yeah, but they didn't exactly set a high standard, did they, relative to Max? That's just true. It's yeah, and third year at the same team as well. You got to think, like, look at where Lando was. Like, look at how Lando performed relative to Ricciardo last year in his third year at the same team, and look at the caliber of driver that Daniel Ricciardo is. Okay, I won't have Ricciardo because Ricciardo's been, like, considering what he missed with COVID, he was running ahead of Lando in this race. He finished ahead of Lando last week. Like, I feel like there doesn't seem to be that gulf there right now. I know it's only 2 races, but I think it's just like, it gets to the point where you're just like kind of running out of excuses, and it just seems like Latifi doesn't have the scene. Look, I know people like to meme it. Latifi's going to beat Albon. No, no. Like, I'm not even sat here saying that Albon's like the next best thing, because I don't think he is. I don't think he's at the level of Russell and Leclerc and Verstappen and Hamilton and all these like top tier drivers. Don't have a go at me because I didn't mention your favourite driver. I'm just spitting them off the top of my head. And but even then, it's just like these mistakes, a team he's well embedded in. Alex has come in after a year off, and he's convincingly outperformed him in the first 2 races of the season. It's honestly, like, if he doesn't have a good year this year, then there has to be change. You know, he'll have had 3 full seasons and getting beaten by George Russell. You know, I think George Russell's great, so I'm not even like holding that massively against him. But that's the only kind of metric we had, and Nicky needs to turn it around. You know, he's already had. Did he shunt in Bahrain? I can't remember. I know he was just like miles back, but I can't remember if he shunted in Bahrain. I don't think he did he? But yeah, and it's just one of them where it's just it's a shame because look, I like the kids. Like, I want him to do well, but at the same time, you can't keep like making excuses. He should be closer to Alex, and Alex is doing a much better job seemingly than Nicholas. Is what it is. It is what it is. But never mind. So I'm just gonna put some people in timeout here. Got some spams. Tell you, if you see any spams, just slam them, mate. I'll trust you. Yeah, it's true, Taylor. He's 20. He's almost 27. That's the thing as well. Like, he's not like he's this young driver. That, you know, because you could make that argument of Stroll. Yes, Stroll hasn't shown loads, right? He's had his moments. He hasn't shown loads consistently, but he's young. Like, he's younger than Lando, I think, isn't he? Or he's like similar age as Lando. So it's one of them, innit? It's one of them. But yeah, I think we should now, right, let's now talk about the Albon incident. Oh, right, okay. I forgot I left the poll up. So 55% of you said amazing. 38% said decent. 1% said trash. Who are you, and why are you trying to make yourself stand out? Right, okay, I'm gonna ask now. I'm gonna do a poll. I'm just gonna have to put the microphone down 2 seconds. Right. Who was at fault? Albon, Stroll, or racing incident? I'm giving you 3 options. So if you are in race control, what are you doing? What are you doing? I will have a mic stand in the future. This is just a mic, but I like holding. You know, I like riffing with a mic sometimes. You know what I mean? It's fun. Right, let me know who you think was at fault for the Albon-Stroll incident. Obviously, I'm not going to get any footage on screen because it seems every time even if I've reversed the image, F1 FOM find a way of finding out and then slamming me. So I'm not going to be showing you. But I want to know from you lot, because we have seen Alex is on board now. It is available. If you want to look it up on Twitter, you should be able to find it quite easily. I know it's on F1 subreddit as well. Because obviously live, we only saw a kind of low angle that pushes through kind of turns 2 and 1, which obviously showed Alex chucking one up the inside and then them connecting. But I want to see what you lot think of the incident, because obviously that's going into what they're battling for. What position were they battling for? They weren't even battling for points, were they? They were battling for... Yeah, don't worry, I don't use Reddit really much either, but, you know. Is it 11? P11? P12? Something like that? I don't know. Something like that. Interesting. Yeah, so the poll's going a similar way to the one I put on Twitter, where the majority of people think it's either Stroll or racing incident, but the biggest proportion of anyone says Albon. Which is when you know it is pretty muddy, you know what I mean? But you know, was anyone? I'm sure some of you were here when I talked about the Stroll incident last year at Brazil. If anyone remembers that, because I did a dedicated. Well, no, did I do dedicated? No, I didn't. I just cut that out of a live stream and made it a separate video because I was like, you know, I thought that was harsh. Like, Yuki ended up getting a penalty for that, and I thought it wasn't his fault at all. Now, my opinion is that I can see why the penalty was given, but I think it was a racing incident. But I understand why it was given, because the thing is with Stroll, I thought definitely Tsunoda wasn't at fault there, because he got the car slowed down. He was fully he was at least 80% alongside Stroll, and Stroll literally turned into the apex like he wasn't there. Now this was different. Stroll definitely didn't turn into the apex here, and Alex wasn't as far alongside as Yuki was. But I would still say Alex got it slowed down, and when you look at it, their relative speed, once their relative speed kind of equals out, Alex is at least 60% alongside. So I think he's entitled. I think Stroll should have given him more space. And I think if Stroll had taken a wider line, I think he would have kept Albon at bay. I don't think Alex would have got past. But the problem for Alex is as soon as he snatches that front left, because the front left did lock, as soon as that happens, then, which... You know what? It's one of them where, again, I think it's harsh, but I understand why. I think if Alex doesn't snatch the front left, from what I've seen, I don't think anything different happens with the incident. But that gives the stewards the whole oh, are you in control of your car or not? And if you've locked a wheel, you're definitely not in a 100% control of your car, regardless of the situation. So I do think it was harsh. I think the Yuki one from last year was a ridiculous decision, personally. I thought that was stupid. This one, I can understand it. For me, it's a racing incident, but Albon was more at fault. Oh yeah, Teela's just posted a link. If anyone hasn't seen the incident from Alex's on board, then but yeah, but I do think that Stroll didn't turn in for the apex, so he clearly knew Alex was there. But I think Stroll should have given him more room for the benefit of both of them. Also, I think because of the outcome as well, I know obviously Alex pulled over and Stroll did carry on, but because it completely spun Stroll round, I think that also probably had an impact. The fact that Alex locked a brake, I don't think it was a bad I think he got enough alongside that he was entitled to the space personally, but because he locked the wheel and because it spun Stroll out, I can understand why they gave a penalty. That's the way I see it. But clearly, again, because there's so much disagreement, and not just from like, I mean, let's be honest, like it's not like analysing a Verstappen-Hamilton incident where you've got the blindly loyal Verstappen and the blindly loyal Hamilton fans who just won't look at things objectively and just stand their driver. I don't see, there's like Stroll and Albon don't have those same fan bases. let's be honest, not to the same extent anyway. Maybe one day when Alex is world champion, but we'll see. But I will always call Alex. I've called Alex out many a time when I thought he's been at fault, and for this one, I think he was. Yeah, I think he was more. I think if he doesn't snatch that front left, then I think that's 100% a racing incident. But because he snatched the front left, I can understand why I got the penalty. Thank you, Robert, for the €5. Stroll generally has the situational awareness of a dog trying to ram a 2 metre wide piece of wood for a gate post, but he wasn't at fault there. Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. But I do think because Alex got enough alongside, I think he got enough alongside, personally. Because that's exactly how I analysed the Tsunoda Stroll incident. How far alongside are you getting, and he did make the apex as well. But there you go. That's the way I see it, anyway. But what do I know? I'm just a man with a large forehead and a YouTube channel. Okay, so that's Williams. Who should we talk about next? I want to talk about Alpine. Oh, I should have. That was so annoying. I messed up that transition. I should have done it. Right. I should have done it like this. Boom. There we go. Then you wouldn't have seen. Stupid. Right. Taylor is fine. Don't worry. People will just have a go at me, regardless. It's just part of the job. Alpine. No, Smooth. They're not mid. Alpine. Decent. Tell you what, like, great little scrap. Full on 2018 Force India Ocon Perez flashbacks. But you know what? And it's funny because they had Otmar on the Sky pad. You had Crofty talking to Otmar. You had my forehead does kind of match the pink, doesn't it? I almost blend in. That was a quality little scrap, and it was great. Great screen time for BWT, although they're all over the track anyway, so it didn't really make much of a difference. But I'm sure the sponsors were quite happy that they scrapped and didn't crash. So you had Ocon ahead, then Alonso got ahead of Ocon, then Ocon was attacking Alonso, and that's the thing I've noticed the most, and I'm sure you have as well. Like, this isn't rocket science. Nothing I'm saying here is like revolutionary. Is that you can have a driver overtake someone, and then on the next lap you can have the driver who's been overtaken then go back at them. And I feel like we never saw that in the previous generation. But because they can follow so closely and then keep in that DRS range, because what would happen last year is that the driver that had more pace would need to fully exploit that extra pace to overcome the turbulent air to then make a move. And then because they have more pace, they'd just pull away. But now, even if you're on like similar pace, if you're behind, you get slipstream and DRS at a track like Saudi Arabia, which is like, DRS galore. You can push it and you can get these battles that continue lap after lap. We saw, like, obviously, Norris got past Ocon, and then Ocon got back past Norris into the final lap. Prime example. But yeah, so that battle between Ocon and Alonso was quality. There was that one incident, wasn't there, where you've got... I haven't watched it back, but I feel like at the time, I think it's one of them where Ocon tried to leave just less than a car's width on his left-hand side between him and the wall, which is obviously the ideal, right? If you leave like 1 centimetre less than a full car's width, then you maximise the amount you can. You're still fully defending the inside, but then you're maximising how you can like open up the corner going into it. And I think I don't know. Did he leave a full car's width? Was there enough room for Alonso to actually make a move? I don't know. That's my honest answer. I don't know. I don't think there was. Watching it live, I don't think there was a. If there was a full car's width, then there was like, I mean, a few millimeters more than a full car's width. So I can see why Alonso went towards there to go for the space. It's one of them for me. It's hard racing. I feel like it's, driver goes for gap. The gap's kind of there, but kind of not. And this is happening at 190 mile an hour. However quick they are going down the end of that straight. I mean, unfortunately, I feel like at some point we are going to get an aeroplane crash at that corner, where someone goes into the back of someone else. They were on the limit. I don't think it was like. I can get why people see it was a bit dirty, but I don't know. I don't think it was dirty. I don't think it was dirty. I don't think it was dirty in the same way that, we've seen drivers push other drivers into the wall, because Alonso was going towards the gap, but he was never alongside. But anyway, regardless, it was a great battle. Alonso got past in the end, and obviously the team were like whole position, which is fair enough. I'm like, fair enough. Like that, they allowed the drivers to race, and then the team were like, right, that's enough, lads. Look on the end. You've had your fun. Like maybe they could have caught Russell if they hadn't been scrapping. It's a point as well. And obviously Bottas was coming up the behind as well. But yeah, I think that was a fair call to make, but it meant that Ocon dropped out of DRS from Alonso, and then Bottas got Ocon. So obviously Esteban wasn't happy about that call because he ended up losing out, which I understand as well. But yeah, so all in all, it was actually fine between the teammates. Obviously, massive shame for Fernando, because that's what if Fernando doesn't retire, that's a P6, isn't it? Like in that race, if he doesn't retire, if everyone else retires as they do, but he doesn't, he's P6. He's finishing ahead of Ocon. It was interesting because last weekend, Fernando out-qualified Esteban, but then Esteban had the better race. This weekend, Ocon out-qualified Alonso, but Alonso seemed to have the stronger race, which I think shows how close it is between them two. But also, again, I think, I rate Ocon very highly. Do I think he's on the level of the top drivers? If we're talking like Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, who the top three as far as I'm concerned. Do I think he's on their level? No. Do I think Fernando in his prime is at their level? 100%, if not maybe higher. He's definitely with them. You know what I mean? I think prime Alonso is top 10 of all time. But I think this just proves that, yes, Alonso's still driving at a very high level, but he's not driving at prime. Come on now. I don't think that's reasonable to expect a almost 41-year-old Fernando Alonso to be at prime, because his prime was so good. He's still very good level, but him and Ocon, if you're saying Fernando Alonso is driving at his prime, you're also saying that Ocon is as good as prime Alonso, because there's nothing really between them. That's just true. You look at the results. I'm just speaking a fact. All right, we talked about Alpine, Red Bull. What more to say about Red Bull? Again, Max maximised. Obviously, his qualifying wasn't incredible. Qualified fourth. Struggled with the tyres in Q3, which he wasn't the only one. But great race. That battle, him and Charles, such a good battle. Such a good battle. So good. They've done it again. And this is the thing as well. And I know I've these two, Charles and Max, are very similar in the way that they drive, and I think Lewis has always been more of a, I guess, I don't know, I think it's partly because of his maturity and how long he's been in the sport, and it's about playing the long game. And I think Max and Charles are still so young that they've got that raw, go for everything, drive like super on the edge. And almost it's like when you've got both drivers doing that, it kind of works more, I feel like. Whereas because obviously Lewis has had his more kind of reserved approach in regards to like wheel to wheel with Max, hence why, you look at Imola, you look at Catalunya from last year, where Max would just squeeze Lewis off the track. Because Lewis playing the long game. But Charles isn't going to do that. You know what I mean? And I feel like you kind of, when you've got two drivers doing like that, I feel like there is definitely a different dynamic to when you've got one driver driving one way and one driver driving the other. But ultimately, like long term, I think I'm buzzing. Like this season's going to be sick. The battle between these two is going to be absolutely banging. I promise you that. It's going to be good. Thank you, Jeff Cott, mate, for the firearms. Appreciate it, man. Can I just say how mad it is that Alfa Romeo mechanics can't count to 5? Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe Alfa Romeo should have actually taken... I forgot about that. Maybe they should have taken Team L of the weekend. I think maybe they should. Because they cocked up Joey's pit stop, and then he had to do a drive-through. And then he still almost finished in the points, which shows how quick that Alfa Romeo was. Just saying. Although, again, 6 cars didn't finish, so... Okay, and so yeah, great battle. Max, fair play, smashed it, did what he did what he had to do, got the move done. I do, actually, yeah, as well. This whole being able to, which obviously is a particular thing at this circuit, right? But this whole driving tactically to be behind the DRS line and then get the DRS. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Emrids, where did I say Lewis was a squeaky clean driver? I just didn't say that. But whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? Because obviously you could certainly argue that having to drive in this way to, like, slow down a bit earlier to get DRS, blah blah blah. You could definitely argue that is overly artificial. You could argue that's very like Mario Kart, Formula E level of like the boost zones you get in Formula E. Mario Kart picking up the star or whatever, going a bit wider. That, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like I'm not sure how I feel because I did like it. I did enjoy it. And I guess it's one of them again. It's not going to be something. It's not going to be a tactic used in every Grand Prix. Because also, yeah, the power of DRS is lower because the cars kick off less. The cars create less drag because obviously these cars are faster in a straight line because it's not generated externally, the aero, it's generated under the car. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't. Yeah, kind of like attack mode in Formula 8. It's kind of... all I'm saying is you're doing something that... You're building strategy into the race, which makes a driver drive more slowly on purpose to pick up DRS. I don't know. I'll be interested to see as the season goes because the DRS was very powerful in Bahrain as well. You got to remember that. Like, see the rate of knots Max was coming at towards the back of Charles down that straight. Yeah, DRS was powerful there. Obviously, going to Australia, they've made Australia more kind of flowing, so lap times will be quicker there because they've curved off a lot of those corners. So you do wonder how powerful DRS will be there as well. I'm buzzing to go back to Albert Park, by the way. I'm so ready to get up at 6 a.m. and watch that race. I'm so ready. But yeah, thank you, Thomas, for the 5 Aussie. Verstappen and Leclerc battle gives me Senna vibes. Verstappen has more raw pace, so Leclerc is more tactical and intelligent. Thank you, Thomas, mate. Appreciate it. Look, I don't disagree. It's one of them where, we're in it now, right? So you've got all this toxicity that will go around between, Verstappen, Hamilton, and I'm sure as the season goes on, if it is Leclerc, Verstappen, and they'll have their controversial incidents, I'm sure things will start to get a bit heated. Social media didn't exist back in the Prost Senna days, so it would have been the same back then as well. You always look back on these things more fondly. There were times that Senna overstepped the mark. There were times that Prost overstepped the mark, but you don't dwell on that because it's the glory days. And I think it's going to be the same for now. So I think just ultimately, right, whether you're going to be neutral, whether you're going to choose to be toxic about your favourite driver, just remember, just enjoy it, because this is incredible. Like, F1 hasn't been this exciting for a long time. Like, in terms of last season was great, 2020 was pretty good, but like the sport, the access we've got now, the competitive nature and what we're seeing, I think the sport is in a really strong place. Viewing figures are going up. They were going down for a long time. And just enjoy it. Just remember, like, if you're going to be a twat on the internet, like, all right, fine. Like, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to change that. But just make sure you enjoy it. That's all I'm saying. Alex will never be a world champion. Lol, that boy is way too beta. Yeah, it's not because he's got in a terrible Williams. It's because he's beta, apparently, Stephen. Very good. Very good. And then on to Sergio. I mean, what more can I say? Incredible quali lap. Again, I put this on Twitter, and I know some of the Verstappen ultras got a bit upset with me. But it's not just because I don't disagree. Max is an incredible racing driver. I don't disagree with that. But it's clearly not the only factor that meant Sergio was, qualified 4 tenths behind him on average last season and well off in the races. It's not just because Max is better than Sergio. It's because he's had that car, that platform. He's been that one continuous driver since Daniel Ricciardo left, for them to focus their efforts and maximise his style in that car. So Gasly flopped, Albon flopped. You look at those relative, you look at the qualifying head-to-head, and Perez did flop relative to Verstappen. Don't get me wrong, Perez was essential in getting Max that title. The defence he put in not just the final race, but other times throughout the season. He did what Albon and Gasly couldn't in that Red Bull. But at the same time, if Perez had jumped into that seat when Gasly did, like, you wouldn't have the benefit of the doubt from the whole Gasly Albon stuff. You'd be comparing Perez to Ricciardo, and Ricciardo won races in that Red Bull and out-qualified Verstappen numerous times in his final season at Red Bull. So, again, it's one of them where clearly, Max isn't carrying that car setup optimized for his style knowledge, which allows Sergio to be a lot closer to Max. And I think the first 2 qualifying sessions, and you look at the race pace in the first 2 races, I think that perfectly vindicates that, Verstappen is the quicker driver. Verstappen's a quicker qualifier, clearly. But Perez isn't as far off as last year was making him look, And this is the man with, 11 years experience in Formula 1. Like, Sergio knows what he's doing. And I was chuffed for him. I was very happy for him that he put it on pole. And I think, yes, as much as the race kind of, he knows he got unlucky. He knows it was nothing to do with him not racing well or having bad pace. He was purely unlucky, and he knows that. And I think he'll carry that confidence going forward. And I think if Red Bull want to win a Constructors, particularly before this race, before this season, I'd be like, it's easy Ferrari Constructors, because we know Sainz can drive very close to the level of Leclerc on his day. But I was like, nah, Red Bull, no, nah, it's not going to happen. Sergio's still going to be too far off, but maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. Right, Mercedes. Mercedes. Again, Russell maximised weekend, did what he could. Car's still slow, or struggling with that issue, porpoising, whatever exactly it is. I didn't actually, because again, I missed Q1. So we'd been at the house, and then we came back in. I was looking at the list, and I was like, where's Hamilton? Why isn't he in the top 15? Where's Lewis? Did he have a problem? I was like, no. Even Albon almost out-qualified Lewis. That's when you're nice bad. I'm sorry, Alex. It just helps me deal with the pain. But yeah, so as far as I understand, qualifying, he was quite happy with the car in like FP1, FP2, FP3, and then they tried something different with the setup, and it didn't work out, and then he had no pace. I guess that's the kind of long and the short of it. Yeah, I think it's one of them where, you know, George obviously was able to pull out a P5, and I can't remember the gap, to be honest, but he looked pretty all right. Obviously, Hamilton setup struggled for qualifying, but obviously you're part Ferme, so I was worried about the race, because obviously if he's struggling so much in qualified and he's got to take that same setup into the race, then, you know, could it be a big struggle? But he would have finished P6. Again, he got unlucky in the same way Sergio did. Seemingly, obviously I know there's loads of like, oh, did he get told he could pit in time or not? I mean, I don't know. Look into it yourself. I don't think he was told in time. Maybe he was. Maybe there is a delay in the radio message relative to the driver. All in all, like, it's pretty fine margins. And also, like, again, remember what happened at Monza when Lewis thought he could come into the pits, couldn't, and then he had to do a drive-through, didn't he? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, after the race, which is, look, I'm going to be critical of drivers when I feel it necessary. I know that Lewis was obviously annoyed about the race. You know, I know when he was like after, he was just like, I maximised, but I think the team made mistakes. Does that need to be said? I don't think so. I don't really like that. I understand he's frustrated. I get that. But it's similar to like what happened in Monaco. You know, it's easy for it's very easy for us to sit here, right, as viewers and and be like, oh, you shouldn't blame the team, you shouldn't have a go at the team, blah blah blah. I get that, but yeah, that's how I feel like it is a team effort. All these things come into it, and I just think that, you know, and trust me, like, Lewis will big up the team. Like, Lewis is one of the bigger uppers of his team, but also he will be critical with his team sometimes. I don't think it's necessary from any driver. I'm not just saying Lewis, right? Any driver. I don't think you should. I don't think you should. What's the term? I can't remember the term. But I think, look, if you're going to be going out there and doing interviews, I don't think you should be for any driver. Okay, it's not just Lewis. And yeah, I just think it is. Look, like they said, you learn more from your mistakes than you do your victories. And certainly this weekend, for numerous reasons, didn't go the way they wanted it to. I think Mercedes are pretty resigned to the fact that a title and constructors bid is going to be incredibly difficult to achieve. Because the problem as well for Mercedes is that all the time they're spending fixing this problem, whatever it is, porpoising or some variation of that, the other teams, like Red Bull and Ferrari, are not spending their time fixing a problem, they're spending their time optimizing the car. So again, budget cap makes it more difficult for them to throw additional resource that they might have been able to do at the past to fix the problem, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's one of them. Again, all in all, damage limitation for Mercedes, clearly third quickest car. I feel like this season might just have to be a bit of a write-off, to be honest. I think Mercedes needs to do what they can to understand the car and see if this direction of... Because they've made a very different car to the Ferrari, very different car to the Red Bull. Is this direction with the super narrow side pod fundamentally good enough? Maybe, but maybe not. And that's the thing. If they decide it's not, then it's almost like they just have to... Right, we're just going to finish P3 in the constructors. Get what you can out of the car, lads. Let's consolidate and focus on next year. Because Mercedes want to be fighting at the top, and I think they will. But with the cost cap, you can't throw resource at this year. And maybe that's the opportunity for Mercedes, right? There's clearly a battle at the top for constructors, for driver's title, between Ferrari and Red Bull. Let's just let them do their thing. We'll just consolidate, be happy with where we are. And then I feel like I know we're only 2 races in. But given the discrepancy of pace, it's huge. Like the discrepancy in race pace is massive. What was the gap between Sainz and Russell before the safety car? It was mad. So yeah, I think Ferrari and Red Bull are too far ahead for it to be worthwhile Mercedes, really focusing on a title challenge this year, for sure. Alex, I know 199. I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you. Dalton Merck, only 2 races. Yeah, but it's a massive gap. It's a huge gap. Huge. Yeah, 26. That's huge. That's a massive gap. That is a massive gap. And that's the thing. It's like, Mercedes could throw loads of resource at trying to optimize this car as it is now and maybe claw back some of that gap. Maybe by mid-season they might be on pace. But because they had such a slow start, for them to actually mount a title challenge, I don't know. I feel like the fact that Red Bull and Ferrari have hit the ground running, I feel like it would be... I think if Mercedes want to get back up there long term, then I feel like they might have to write off this season. I do. But there you go. There you go. I mean, true. Red Bull are behind Mercedes in the constructors. It's a good point. But come on now. We're talking about pace. Right, how long have I been going for? I've been going for an hour 15. Bruv, how do you not handle this waffle? This level of waffle from me. Okay, let's look at McLaren next. McLaren. Thank you again, Alex. No upgrades on the car yet. We'll see in Imola. We will see. I'm understanding that's a huge gap to overcome. Could they do it? Maybe, but we'll see. Yeah, McLaren, again, much better, which I'm not surprised about, but still fundamentally slow speed, not good. And I do wonder, I know the engine freeze, there's still certain parts that aren't frozen. Mercedes, but there's no smoke without fire. It can't be a coincidence that every single Mercedes-powered team, including Mercedes, are way off where we expected them to be. And way off relative to the Renault, the Honda, and the Ferrari-powered teams. Like Williams, Aston Martin, mud. McLaren, pretty mud. So yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's one. Is it normal for you to say it's one of them where the whole time? Yes, Marcel, it is. It is very normal for me to say that. You know when you say I say like a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on, like, I don't know, like you know what I mean? I say that as well. You know what I mean? I say that a lot. It's just that's what you get. Yeah. So McLaren, Lando. Yeah, I mean, Ricardo, they were running pretty similarly, weren't they? Damage limitation, it is a positive, but they just need to sort out that slow speed, which wasn't that a problem for them last year as well? Tommo the Valley Girl. I don't even know what that means, but it doesn't sound great. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit concerned about McLaren, but because they need to sort out that slow speed because they're so slow. They were so slow in Bahrain, so slow. And you look at Alpha again. Once Joey gets set and a bit more confident, and they sort out their starts. You look at Alpine, have looked really good. You look at Haas, looking good. It's just like it's going to be difficult for McLaren to be in the top half of the constructors, I think. But yeah, there you go. Haas. Fair play, Kevin Magnussen, for making the entire race. he had the neck tape on because Saudi in ground effect cars rip Magnussen and Hulkenberg's relative necks because they haven't had the training, they haven't had the pre-season build-up, they haven't had the time in the cars to build that strength. And I mean, Russell said afterwards, most physical race of the year. Pierre was, probably blown out and in testing. Hopefully not. I'm sure he's all right. So Magnussen P9, I think if there wasn't all those caveats, I think that car performance, that car could be up there with the Alpine in pace for sure. Absolutely. I think Haas, Alpha, Alpine, all kind of there or thereabouts, which is weird to say after last year. You wouldn't have thought that beforehand, would you? But yeah, it's great. It's so nice to see Haas doing bits. Obviously, I'm not surprised that they didn't run Mick. He was cleared to race, but that's a complete write-off, that chassis. You're going to start at the back anyway. Is there really any point in putting mad resource and mad, labour hours into fixing that car or getting some kind of car ready? It makes sense. Cost cap as well. You got to bear that in mind. But yeah, we'll see them back in Australia, which I'm looking forward to. Thank you, Chinwag, for the $2. Russell driving Williams with silver paint job. Well, no, good thing, I'm sure, obviously Russell's disappointed that the Mercedes isn't as quick as he thought it would be or hoped it would be. But also, I'm sure he's like, well, at least we're ahead of Williams. Because they're stone dead last, seemingly. So it's not every cloud. Every cloud. But yeah, great job from K-Mag. Smashed it. And decent from, it was decent in qualifying for Mick until the crash. Because he almost got into Q3, didn't he? He just got dropped out. But he almost got into Q3. Wasn't a million miles off. But yeah, big shunt. Scary, but he's okay, which is the main thing. Ferrari, kind of talked about already. Again, great battling from Leclerc. Sainz, yeah, just kind of... He didn't lose. He was running... Was it 7-8 seconds off of the top two? He wasn't well out of sight, but I think he's clearly taken a bit longer than Charles to get on top of the car. But I do think... don't get me wrong, I think Charles is Charles has the higher ceiling than Carlos, but Carlos has got more experience. And I think the experience paid dividends last year where they weren't in a top car, but Carlos maximised the opportunities that they did have. But also Charles got unlucky last year, so... Thank you, Cicada, for the 100 rupees. Who do you think Matteo will consider if it gets close during the later stages of the championship battle? Will it be Charles or Sainz? Well, I think that Ferrari's main because I feel like there was definitely a concerted desire and effort for Red Bull to make Max Verstappen world champion in their team, even when Ricciardo was there. And obviously when Ricciardo left and Gasly and Albon and Perez all came in knowing they were going to be number two. That's just that. I'm sure that would have been part of the contract probably. But I feel like Ferrari would be silly to put their eggs in one basket. And I think just give trust and faith in the drivers that they will keep it clean, they will respect each other and they will push, but they won't overshoot. It depends on, because I think the constructors is obviously a big deal for Ferrari because they haven't won any championship. They won constructors 2008, drivers 2007 since then. So this is a huge deal, and I'm sure the drivers kind of understand that. And they're both still young as well. That's the thing. Carlos Sainz could end up being at Ferrari for a very long time. He's only, 27? Isn't he? 26, 27? So, yeah, I think they're in a good position. It's a good problem to have for now. But again, as the season goes on, we get towards the later races, there will be more on the line. So, yeah, we might start to see things. Because Carlos isn't far off. He's definitely not far off. At all. So I'm waiting for that Carlos Sainz race win. I'll be very happy. Then what will happen with Mick? I don't know, Charles. That's the thing. Look, obviously Mick Schumacher's name has helped open doors for him. And the idea of a Schumacher back at Ferrari is amazing, but Carlos is doing an incredible job, and I don't think Ferrari would kick Carlos out because Mick's still got a lot more to prove. That's the thing. He's got a lot more to prove. Carlos has already proven he's like very, very good. But yeah, once Carlos gets that win, I think that'll spur him on a bit, you know. I think that'll help him out. Aston Martin, yeah, not another. I mean, obviously, I think Hulkenberg's, you know, he said it himself. He's not. There was a quote, I can't remember exactly, and I'll paraphrase. It was like, the aim for this weekend is to just maximise mileage so that I can give the team as much information as possible. So for them, when Seb jumps back in, they've got some kind of understanding. I think we knew that Nico wasn't racing for points. He was racing for mileage and did a very good job. And Lance could have got in the points maybe, but ultimately that Aston Martin is down there with the Williams. Which again, I got a lot of stick for putting Aston Martin P9 in my constructors' predictions, and turns out I wasn't that far off. I did also put Williams 7th in my constructors' prediction, so I'm not saying I was right on everything, but I'm just saying the one I got the most stick for, I was actually correct about. I should have got more stick for the Williams. Oh, there's Lottie. Do you want to see Lottie actually? I'm gonna get Lottie out because someone just knocks on the door, probably the postman. So I'm gonna go grab Lottie so you can see the dog. Lottie. Oh, she doesn't like being picked up anymore. There you go. We'll get her. Lottie doesn't want to come on stream. She usually likes being picked up. It's because she was asleep. Oh look, you see her in the background. Look, there you go. There's Sam. And Lottie's in the background. Lottie's mugged me right off there. I can't believe that. We'll get her at the end. was that the who's at the door? Oh, postman. What did you get? Did you get any nice gifts? Oh no, colouring in, lovely. Just an incident with the dog there. Lottie usually loves me, but yeah. Well, the postman woke her up. Obviously a bit. But yeah, Lottie's a bit bigger than Minton, so not quite as easy to pick up. Bit more stacked. Just right. Hang on. Let's go back to talking about. Maybe Lottie's just not a fan of Aston Martin. Okay. Maybe. Right, so yeah, obviously, yeah, Hulkenberg did what he could. Did Stroll have a good race? I can't really remember a lot of. We didn't really see much of Stroll at all, so it was just a bit of a you know what I mean? Is Lottie your new dog? No, Lottie's not my new dog. Magnussen was also behind Albon and Stroll behind him. Yeah, I mean, obviously that was after the safety car as well, so you've got yeah, he was screwed a bit. Look, obviously that's the thing. A lot of people were screwed by the safety car, some more than others, but it's hard to keep track, isn't it? Because you know you're watching the live feed, names are moving all over the place. It's difficult to kind of keep track of what's going on. Thank you again, Sakada, for the 100 rupees. I think Latifi might go to Haas next year. Really? Interesting. Considering Williams have no more considering him as an investment, your take. Well, Safina's clearly still a big kind of part of that brand. You know what I mean? So like, they're a big sponsor on the car. So I think Latifi money is very important. Lottie's just hang on. I want to see if I can get there. You can't quite see Lottie. You can just see her like smudged silhouette there. There you go. I can't believe you mugged me off like that on my own stream, Lottie. How dare you? Oh, look, you see a little head moving. There you go. It's like that's the most you're getting. Maybe Lottie's camera shy. Sword, I'm not going to Silverstone this year. I'll be in Canada and America. So for the Grand Prix. For Canada. Just for Canada. And then I'll still be in Canada/America for Silverstone. Right, anyway, back to the thing. Yeah, so Aston Martin, not great. Alpine already talked about. AlphaTauri. Gasly didn't seem to have much pace. He was falling back a bit at the start, wasn't he? And which wasn't ideal. And then obviously Tsunoda's just might as well not turned up. So not great. Not great for AlphaTauri. I had high expectations of AlphaTauri. Currently they're underperforming relative to my expectations, but we'll see. Gasly was running well last week. Obviously Tsunoda got in the points last week. Gasly got in the points this week, but wasn't running quite as well. So it depends. Like we're going to learn over the course of the season as well which cars suit which kind of tracks better as well. So, you know, difficult. Latifi out Drogovic in hot take. I mean, Felipe Drogovic, great driver, but also he's had this is his third year in F2, isn't it? No, that automatically doesn't look great. Thank you for the $5 Aussie. Apologies, I wouldn't know how to say your name, but thank you very much. Do you feel like Lando will jump ship when opportunity arises? No, definitely not. McLaren's yes, they're struggling a bit at the minute, but I think as a stable long-term thing, I think McLaren's going to be fine. I think they'll get up there eventually. It might take a few seasons, but I think they'll get there. But yeah, if Drogovic won the championship, it would be a shout, to be fair. That's a good point. Thank you, MA, as well, for the $7.99 Aussie. It's especially hard to keep up with everyone when all we can see is driver numbers. Yeah, I'm still not sold on the new graphics. I still don't think they're quite as clear as they could be and maybe should be at times. But yeah, is what it is, isn't it? Is what it is. So yeah, AlphaTauri, okay, but not great. And then Alfa Romeo, last but not least. A good ride. What happened to Valtteri? I actually don't know what happened to Valtteri. Let me know. But yeah, neither of them had a great start. Bottas had an okay start. Joe had a really bad start and then got caught out into that kind of turn 1, turn 2, didn't he? He had an unfortunate start, and then kind of the car went into like anti-stall or some stuff, so he ended up at the back. But he made his way back through. You know, considering then the 5-second penalty and then the drive-through, to then finish P11. Obviously, I know there's like loads of cars getting, you know, DNF in and blah blah blah, but I think that shows that Alfa Romeo does have pace. Engine overheating, was it? Yeah. So it was overheating for Alonso, for Valtteri, and I'm assuming for Ricciardo as well. Crazy. Obviously, it's a night race, but it's a hot part of the world, so. You know what I mean? It's these things will happen. But yeah, right. I think we're done. I think we are done. I would love to show you Lottie, but she's now asleep. So look, you can just about see her little head. There's Lottie's head, asleep. But clearly she doesn't want to come on the camera. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Oh, was it drivetrain issue for Ricardo? Nice. Again, still moving in, so there will be no like main channel video this week. Maybe next week, but I don't have internet either, hence why I'm here. So this isn't my new house. This is Hannah's dad's house. But next time you see me should be from the new gaff, okay? Which I'm excited to show. Although, yeah, I need a desk. I haven't got a desk, so I'll probably be sat on the floor. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to buy. I need to get a clothing rail from Argos because we literally have no clothes storage at all. There's no built-in wardrobes or anything in the new place. Where am I sitting in Canada? We've just got the basic general admission tickets. So, yeah. Oh, Jeff Cott, thanks again for the $5. Yes, Saudi. Almost forgot to talk about that. Still think Saudi should be removed from the calendar. Yeah, so obviously, what can I say? When you decide to host a race, take the money, and go to a place, then, because look, people say, oh, don't mix sport and politics. I'm sorry, but that's just naive, okay? Because sport and politics, top tier sport, will always have a political element to it because it's so followed, it's so embraced and supported, whether it's football, whether it's F1, whether it's NFL, whether it's basketball, whatever the sport, okay, there will always be some political. And when people have, people are known, whether it's athletes, things like I say, some people are like, oh, Tommo, stick to F1. I don't follow you to talk about stuff that isn't F1. Okay, I'm a human being. I'll talk about what I want to talk about, all right? Whatever. And I think that's the case for, as much as F1 drivers are F1 drivers and F1 is a sport, drivers and the sport as a whole are entitled to talk about whatever they want to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, if people want to speak their mind on issues, then so be it. There is a inherent connection between, there's a lot of talk about sports washing. That term gets thrown around a lot. Again, football as well. Talk about the Saudi takeover in Newcastle, or the Abramovich stuff at Chelsea. And for sure, like, I don't think the irony is lost on anyone that last weekend all the drivers are sat there with no war t-shirts, start the Bahrain Grand Prix, and then the weekend after, a missile strike 6 miles away from the track as part of a ongoing Saudi-Yemen war, which I don't really know too much about, to be honest, right? Again, if you want to find out the facts and look into it yourself, you're welcome to. But that, for all intents and purposes, it is a war. Like, of course it is. I mean, it's been going on for like 8 years. And obviously there's this, which I don't disagree with. I'm not saying I disagree with this, like, boycott of Russia at all, because I think, you got to hit that dictator where it hurts. Unfortunately, it hurts a lot of Russian people as well, but it's a difficult one, isn't it? There's pros and cons to any action. But what the Russian government is doing in Ukraine is fundamentally wrong. But war, it's difficult, isn't it? It's one of them that ultimately the choice to race, like, realistically, and I agree with because what was said afterwards is like, okay, if you cancel the race, well, everyone's still going to be there. You can't just fly everyone out the next day. Like, in terms of people being in Saudi Arabia and there being a present danger, is that still there even if you cancel the race? Yes. You're in the country. Like, you can't just fly everyone out. But it's also that it's the metrics of racing, of choosing to race when there is, you can see the Aramco factory, like, you can see the smoke plume. On Friday, Saturday, whatever day. It's Friday, wasn't it? Yeah, it's Friday, because they stayed up to, like, everyone was up until like 4 a.m. discussing it. And combined with, the fact that, Aramco money is so directly linked to F1 at the moment, because F1 have accepted. And look, don't be getting me wrong, like, you look at every nation has a history with war, or there's some kind of controversial. This is what a lot of people are saying about, Russia was like, yeah, but US have been at war and UK has been at war, and yeah, okay, I understand that, but in this instance, it's just do I think the race should have gone ahead? I feel like no, because I think what's more important, obviously people's safety, and not having the race, I think, would have made everyone safer. Yeah, I know nothing happened, but it's just the metrics of it are so, like, tone deaf. Like, you're gonna sit there and, like, have the drivers rightfully campaign against war the weekend before, and then there's literally you could see it from the track. You know what I mean? It's just like, again, this is what I said on Twitter as well. It's like F1 knowingly accepted this money, accepted this relationship with Saudi Arabia, knowing that they are, at war, knowing the controversy surrounding it, knowing that this isn't even about the human rights thing. This is a war thing. This is kind of, they're almost like they're linked, but they're also two separate things. And F1 knowingly accepted all this, and then stuff like this is going to happen, and it's going to make the sport look hypocritical. It's going to make the people in charge look greedy and bad. And does that mean that they are? Maybe. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's frustrating that there has to be this kind of caveat. There has to be all this surrounding negativity and look, again, I'm just ultimately, when I'm talking about this stuff, I know no more than the average F1 fan, to be honest. I've tried to educate myself as much as I can, but don't come to me for the right opinion. Don't come to me for the well researched, taking all things into consideration take. I'm just speaking what I feel. Okay, I don't know enough. Again, I do F1 content, and I'm only going to speak on things where I feel like I've got enough education to have some kind of educated opinion. But I don't know. I don't know the history of I don't even know fundamentally why there's a conflict. I don't really understand. You know what I mean? But yeah. And yeah, again, US supplying Saudi weapons. If we're not going to race in Saudi, if the US is supplying, I don't know. I mean, it's just like anything. It's so nuanced. If you took that to the super, well, look, so you could say then, okay, well, there's a war between Russia and Ukraine. The Russians are the aggressors, of course. But then does that make supply us, the British supplying weapons to Ukraine, does that mean we're participating in the war, and then should we not race in any European country that is supplying Ukraine with weapons? It just becomes this super... It's one of them things, it's obviously a multifaceted issue. It's obviously there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And I don't envy the job of Formula One and the FIA, of having to manage this, but at the same time, again, they chose to race in a country that not only has all of this, we talk about human rights abuse and the fact that women have only been able to drive for so long, and there's so many elements that are so backwards, and there's such a clear and obvious acceptance of large sums of money to race there. F1 accepted that risk, and things didn't exactly go swimmingly, did they? So I don't know. I've not really got much more to say on it. It's a lose-lose. F1 doesn't come out looking good. What more can I say? Bin Laden family sponsored Williams. It's true. It's true. You literally look back at the old Saudi Williams from the 80s, and it was sponsored by, Bin Laden's dad, who ran a hotel firm or something, wasn't it? Something I can't remember. I watched the video on it. It's mad. But yeah. Anyway, that's it. I haven't got much more to say on that. Lottie's still sleeping in the corner. I would love to bring her over, but she's not playing ball, so we'll let her sleep. I'll go give her a stroke afterwards. She doesn't mind being stroked. She just doesn't like getting picked up when she's tired, clearly. But then, because every time we're here, we've got Minton, so them two are running round. So I can pick up Lottie, I can pick up Minton, all good. But she's sound though, so there you go. Right, okay, I'm actually done now. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all taking the time. I'll probably do a stream next weekend just to chat over. I'm sure there'll be news of some kind. Hopefully some good news. Maybe Andretti joining Formula One. That'd be nice. Or other teams, because I know Domenicali mentioned that there were other brands potentially interested in joining the sport. maybe we'll hear something. Tends to happen sometimes when there's little breaks at the start of the year. One weekend off, and then to Australia we go. But yeah, cheers everyone for coming. Did I miss 2 super chats? Cool. I will address the super chats now. Thank you for super chatting. I'll do my best to keep up, but Jeff got again, mate. Jeff, mate, stop. You're far too generous. You honestly don't need to. BLM knees, still racing Texas and other racist areas. LGBTQ t-shirts, racing the Middle East, boycott Russia, racing other war-torn countries. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's, yeah. When does one issue eclipse another issue? There's always issues everywhere in the world. Does that mean we don't race anywhere? It's a spectrum, isn't it? So it's that's why it's never going to be something everyone agrees on, you know, because certain issues mean more to certain people. Because of course, if there's an issue, you know, if there's an issue, it's like when people have a guy like this, like when he, you know, campaigns for Black Lives Matter, and they'll be like, oh, well, why don't you care about this? It's like, well, that's an issue that's personally affected him. In the same way that if, like, you've dealt with cancer or you've had someone close to you deal with cancer, that obviously that's going to be a cause that, like, my dad died of a brain aneurysm, right? That wasn't something I really knew much about, but I raised money for a charity that works with people who have had brain injuries, because that was an issue that doesn't mean I don't care about other ways that people can, like, that's silly, but it's just one of the things where it's like everyone's going to have their own personal opinion, but as long as people are acting in good faith, that's all. Like, there's just too much cynicism online. There's just too much cynicism when we're looking at these things, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's just like, should give everyone a bit of benefit of the doubt. We don't all grow up in the same place. We don't all have the same experience and environment and the same privileges. It's just the way it is. But yeah, thank you, Marcus, as well, for the 100 check. When can we see you in Talking Points of Backseat Driver? Probably next week, or Australia, around Australia. Probably Talking Points. Backseat, not sure, but I will be on there. Don't you worry. Right, okay, I am actually done now. How long have I been streaming for? Almost 2 hours. Wow. Well done if you're still here. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bob, as well, for the 2 New Zealand dollars. Who will win F2 this year, and why is it Liam Lawson? Doing a great job. Big up, Liam. Now, cheers, everyone, for coming. Be safe, be well, be happy, stay hydrated. Have a Lucozade. Lucozade is 10 times... Gatorade is horrible. I did Chicago Marathon in 2017. Gatorade is what they had on the side. Disgusting. Lucozade, top tier. But yeah. Thank you to everyone who's watching and listening after the fact as well. If you got to this stage, then you're a crazy person. But there you go. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'll see you on the next stream, which should probably be next weekend. Don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll make it up as I go along, because I'm moving and I'm knackered. So yeah. Cheers, everyone. Say bye to Lottie, who's just there. You can't really see her. Sorry. She doesn't like being picked up. Goodbye. Goodbye. Have a good day. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.